Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in for another episode of my video channel. So today, what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about IVs. Reason why I'm going to do this is because I've had a number of some of my friends, even some family members and some colleagues thought, you know what, I should probably do a video about about IVs and how IVs work. So what's an IV? What is an IV? An IV or intravenous. It's pretty much a device that's used to access the body's vein in the sense of giving in fluids. Okay, so the main purpose of an IV is to access, to access the blood. We can draw blood from IVs, but the main thing is to, administer medications, administer fluids, some other agents that can be used for diagnostic testing, such as contrast dyes and so forth. So those are kind of like the main purposes of an IV. IVs come in different sizes, which I'll get into a bit later. But I mean, an IV access is pretty much it's an access that we need, especially if there's an emergency situation. Like God forbid, if the patient codes and we need to start pushing like life treating medications, we have an intravenous access that can that we can access to and administer medications that can save someone's life. Who can put an IV? A nurse definitely can put one in. If you, and a lab tech, or if a lab tech that's trained, or an ER technician that's trained, pretty much any regulated health care worker. Now, I shouldn't really say that, but someone who's trained to do it is able to do it. And it's mainly either a lab tech or ER tech or a nurse. Some doctors can put IVs into as well, so that's good. But that's pretty much who can put an IV. Now, there's different sizes of IVs. So the one thing with IVs, which I'm going to get into, is the bigger the size number of the IV, the smaller it is. Okay, so that's just something to keep in for all my nursing students and all those who are not familiar with IVs. So generally with IVs, they can range anywhere from a 14 gauge, which is humongous, to 24, which is like the smallest, and that's usually used in pediatrics and kids and babies and so forth. The standard IV size usually for an adult is a 20 gauge, and that's a pink one, which I'll show in a minute. 22, preferably 20. 18 is even better. 18 tends to be used in like resuscitation situations, or even like to go for like a CT that needs contrast dyes. So we like to use an 18. But at 18, sometimes not everyone's veins can not really really handle 18. A 20 is fine. For those who have smaller veins, 22 gauge is usually okay. And like I said, for babies and kids, it's usually like a 24. So I've got some IVs here and I'll show you. So there's different types of IVs as well too. So depending on your facility and depending on where you work at, some of the IVs might be a little bit different. Now, I've come across, because I work at two different hospitals, so there's two different IV sites that are two different IVs that we carry. So this one's a 20 gauge, okay? So this is a 20 gauge IV, and as you can see, that's how it looks like. Now what I'll do is I'll take out the IV and I'll show you how it looks like, okay? So this is a 20 gauge. As you can see, it is pink. That's the standard size. We also have a 22 gauge. This is what I mentioned before. So this is blue. Okay, that's the standard size. That's a 22 gauge. We also have, and if I can find it here, probably not. I have a 24 gauge as well. I thought I had a smaller one, but I guess I don't. But here's a 24 gauge. Now this is a different style of IV, which I'll show a bit after, but there's different styles as well. So this is a 24 gauge IV. And this is a 16. So this is a big one. This is a 16 gauge IV, okay? So, and also, sorry, this is an 18 as well too. Okay, this is the green one, all right? So depending on your facility, there's different types of how the IVs are set up. Most hospitals have a type where this, and I'll show you this one here. So this is an IV here, okay? So normally the way how this works, as you can see, so this is your IV, and what happens is that you'd put a tourniquet on. So the tourniquet is this. So the tourniquet is what you put on on a person's arm to see, you know, for the veins to pop up. I can't really do it on myself, but you know, you can kind of get the idea of what that is. So what will happen is that the tourniquet's on, you're palpating, you're feeling for a vein. Sometimes you can see it, but it's always, in my knowledge, in my experience, it's always best to feel for one. So you can feel for one, and if you feel for the vein, so what happens is that this part here, okay, now just to show you, part of the IV, there's the actual needle. This is the needle. And then this part here is the catheter. The catheter is a plastic tip that actually sits in your vein. Okay. So a lot of people think it's an actual needle that sits in your vein. It's not an actual needle. It's a plastic catheter that sits in, and it's bendable, it's flexible, scrambled to bend your arm. Okay. So what happens is that when the IV gets in, let me see if I can use, let's just say, okay, I'm gonna use this paper towel, for example, just roll a paper towel. So just say this is your arm, and then this is the IV. So pretty much the IV will go in like this, if you can see it. I'm doing this really bad. So it goes in like this. Some of you guys can see that. And when it goes in like this, what happens is that when the IV goes in, you will see flashback. Okay, so when you see that flashback, what will end up happening is the person will advance the catheter like this. And when they advance it, they're also holding this area too, okay? They're pressing this area down is because if they don't, the blood's gonna start pouring out and it's gonna be like a chainsaw massacre mess. It's really bad. So what will happen is that it will be a situation where they'll go like this. So as you can see, they're advancing the catheter and the needle comes out just like that, okay? So then that needle stays in. This is the actual needle. This needle gets discarded in the sharps container. And then what will end up happening is that, and I unfortunately don't have it with me, but for these ones, there's like a tubing that is connected. And then that tubing gets connected to the IV fluid, and there you go. Okay, so that's how the normal center IVs work, okay? This one is, it's the BD Insight Audio Guard. Those are the standard ones, okay? But there's some new ones, and honestly, I love these new ones. These new ones are awesome, okay? So now you have these ones. These are the BD Nexiva ones, okay? So the way how these are very interesting is that instead of, like, everything's all in one set, as you can see. So instead of attaching a tube to this, the tube is already there. So all that really happens is that you just need to clamp this, okay, in order to stop the blood from flowing all the way around. This makes it a lot easier because you don't have to worry about, you know, holding it down and including and all that stuff, okay? The way how this works, and I'll just show you, okay? So, again, you take the plastic thing off, okay? This is the needle here, it's sharp, okay? Again, you're going down, but let's pretend this paper towel is your arm. So this goes down like this, okay? So just say you're going down like this. It goes down. So what happens is that, again, when you go in, if you hit a vein, you're going to start seeing blood coming through, right? And it'll start going through the tube. And then what will happen is as soon as you see it and it'll come going down, you're in the vein, okay? So then what's going to happen, if you can see this here, you push this through like that. And when you push that through, you're taking the needle out. This comes out. You'll hear a click. So when you hear the click, that means the needle has been, it's been removed and it's locked in. That comes out. And then what happens is that the blood will start coming down here. Okay, I don't know if you guys can see. The blood will start coming down here. You have it clamped. You put your Tegaderm on, your dressing, which is this. Okay, you put that on like so. And this goes off, you peel it off, it goes here, and then you attach your tubing in, or you can take the blower from that, okay? So that's generally how the IV works, okay? Now, again, I just wanted to mention to you, so this is the needle, this is the sharps contain, this is the needle, this will end up in a sharps container, okay? So this part here, this is the part that sits in your vein. As I mentioned before, as you can see, it's plastic, okay? So this bends, and it purposely bends because it's sitting in your vein, okay? Here's another one like this too, okay? Same thing, okay? So this all bends, okay? So I mentioned about the different sizes of IVs. Now, where can you put IVs, okay? Generally where there's a vein, okay? Normally veins are placed in this area here, which is known as the AC, okay? So it's mainly placed here, okay? You can also put them in the hands as well too. As you can see, I don't know if the camera really shows it well, but I've got decent veins. So it can go anywhere in the hand, anywhere in the arm. I've had situations where we even had to put them in the feet, okay? There's certain areas where you don't want to put veins in, put IVs in. There's certain areas that are really quite sensitive. I personally would not recommend putting an IV here, this hurts. It's not the greatest. I mean, if you're desperate, then yeah, but I wouldn't recommend that. Um, but generally, if you can't put it this way, if you can't even find an IV access and you're having like a hard time finding a vein, you need to look at other alternatives, right? So if it's just a resuscitation situation, you might have to look at something like an IO, where they literally drill into the bone, put an IV access in, and they attach it so they can get fluids in. Um, Also, too, they might have to look at probably putting a central line in. That's again in a situation where they need resuscitation and the person is required of like multiple IV fluids. And usually, central lines are something that are handled in critical care units like ICU, CCU, and so forth. Also, too, if it's a situation where this person just has poor vascular, peripheral veins, then they might have to look at something at a PICC line or a portacath. Those are pretty much permanent IVs, where it with the PICC line it comes out and it's literally it's like an IV that's there permanently. Well, it can be removed, but it's there. And then a portacath, again, that's something that's kind of underneath the skin and it gets direct access to the vein. So that's where yeah. So there's as far as where you can put an IV. Now in nursing school, okay. Now for me, now I don't know how it is in different countries, so I can only speak with me being in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. But we don't learn IVs. I mean, we learn about them, but we don't learn to practice and do IVs in nursing school. You pretty much learn that when you start your career. With that said, it also depends on what kind of nursing you're doing. So, for example, if you are doing ER or ICU or any form of critical care, the chance of you accessing and putting IVs is going to be more prevalent than working on the floor, because that's something that you need to do and it's a skill. Whereas on the floor, and not to say people on the floor don't do IVs, but it's not that prevalent because chances are the person already has an IV and it's not necessarily a skill you're going to build on because that IV is already there. With that said, it's a great skill that any nurse should know how to do. Likewise, I mean, if you're a psych nurse or you work in a community is different. Community, I can see in case if someone's getting IV antibiotics and so forth, it is a skill they should know and probably are able to do. But if you're working in a different type of area of nursing, and you rarely touch IVs, it's something that you're not going to be able to do, right? So with that said, yeah, we don't learn it in nursing school. I've heard some places they do. I don't know about that. I can't verify that, but I can say for me, and in Ontario specifically, we don't learn that. I mean, we discuss about it, but you don't actually learn to put IVs until either maybe in your clinical practice in your last year in your pre-grad, which even again is a little bit iffy. I guess it depends on your clinical teacher or your preceptor if they're comfortable with it, or pretty much like when you start your job, it's a matter of you just getting the practice. So that's pretty much it with IVs. That's pretty much what I can wrap up right there. I listed a link on my video below of the different IVs that I mentioned about, like the ones like BD, Nexiva. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. I do apologize. There's that, and then the other one that I mentioned before too. So I can just put those links in the bottom just for those who are interested in just kind of knowing more information about those IVs. Because like I said, in two of my hospitals that I work at, they use both of these, and I swear these IV sites, they're really good. I really like these ones. The other ones are great too, but I don't know. These ones to me just make life so much easier. So that's pretty much it. That's all about IVs. I am going to go to my bed soon because I literally just worked a 12-hour shift last night. So and I'm quite tired, and I had a very, very, very interesting shift. I had there was three codes, and this is ER, three codes, and plus I was precepting, so it was very interesting, but it was tired. It was really tired. So anyway, feel free to comment below. Feel free to like this video, subscribe, share it. If you have any questions or comments, please comment below. What are your thoughts and comments about IVs? Do you guys have any tips? Are there any other IVs that you come across? And yeah, that's about it. If you have any suggestions, just let me know. Just leave your comments below. Thanks a lot. Peace.